What is your biggest cheat code in life? Story 1. If you're the cook in your family, only cook dinner 4 times a week, but double batch for the freezer. Then 1 day a week order pizza, and the final 2 days use the freezer meals. When the freezer gets too full, go on vacation and tell your family to eat the leftovers in the freezer. Story 2. Quit alcohol, especially when you're older. Sets you back for days if you indulge. Didn't have a problem, just decided to stop. It's easier socially to not say, I don't drink. Just say I'm driving, gotta be up early tomorrow, or another excuse so people leave you alone about it. Story 3. When you start at a new job or want to make friends at a new place, compliment people behind their backs. What I mean is always say things like, have you seen Stephanie? She looks really cute today. Or, James is really knowledgeable. I'm sure I'll be learning a lot from him. Everyone loves a person who gives compliments, and when it gets back to the person, they will be pleased and flattered. Story 4. Focus on gratitude and what I do have. Helps me have a positive mindset, as I am lucky enough to have many positive things in my life to be grateful for. No matter how annoying of a customer service call I have to take is. Seriously, customer service can wear you down. Even just over the phone, Elmao. It's hard to argue with or help people when they swear 2 + 2 = 3 and won't listen when I say it's 4. Gratitude helps a lot for the crap I do have to deal with. Story 5. When I don't feel like doing something, I choose a number in my head between 5 and 20, and this is the number of steps I immediately do. I count the numbers in my head as I do them. Ew, I don't feel like doing the dishes. *Q for choosing a number *. I pick 13 *. 1. Pick up a fork. 2. Clean it. 3. Put it on the rack. 4. Pick up a plate. 13. Success. Edit. Since people are asking, yes, I do tend to continue, more often than not, once these steps are done. This is because the hardest part is always to get started, and this tip helps with that. Once you have momentum, it's sometimes even harder to stop than to keep going. But you can definitely stop when the number is reached. Story 6. Avoid talking about your personal life at work. Try to keep work at work and your home life separate as much as possible. Work on a work-life balance. It's not about having an equal pie chart, but feeling fulfilled in both. Story 7. Get up at the same time each within reason, counting for sickness and sleep in days. Show up early, work hard, go home on time or a little late. If you find your efforts aren't helping you, it's time to change jobs or locations. Family comes first. If you have a wife/husband/children, they are your focus. If work can't understand, see above. Don't be afraid to have people not like you. Story 8. 60 minutes of Zone 2 cardio every day. Here, I also do serious strength training, so I already had muscles and was strong, but getting my heart in shape is what really changed my life and improved every aspect of it. Story 9. People help those who help themselves. Start pushing your car along the side of the road. People that see you struggling will stop to help. Walk around a parking lot asking people to push your car. Those same people would drive off. Even if you know you can't do it at all by yourself, start pushing. Story 10. You're in control of so much in your life. Your emotions, your actions, and reactions. You can basically do whatever you want, but there are consequences for your actions or inactions. Don't let anyone tell you that you cannot do something. Story 11. Not for life, but for life in the restaurant biz. When a customer is super rude or hateful, I say in the sweetest, most genuine way, I'm so sorry. I didn't hear you. What did you say? 9/10. They check themselves and come correctly the second time they speak to you. Gives them a chance to check themselves. Story 12. If you attach a feeling of joy or contentment to the act of noticing details, the world provides an effectively infinite buffet of joy. It won't solve all your problems for you, but it does give you easy access to a positive emotion. And when you get good at this, you can even find details to enjoy about bad feelings and circumstances. In the middle of pain and sorrow, being able to think this sucks, but it's kind of neat how much it sucks, is a powerful subversion. Story 13. City driving tip. When approaching a stoplight, use threshold braking to a very slow roll. Try to not come to a full stop. Oftentimes, in the few seconds of creeping, the light will turn green and you get a rolling start. If you try this, note how much a rolling start makes a difference getting ahead of traffic. Not only will you save gas, you will always beat vehicles that speed, slam on the brakes, and sit at the light forever. Story 14. Take 5. 10 minutes every day to plan out what your next day will look like. Everyone has a generic to-do list, but this extra step is the secret sauce. Take a few minutes to grab some of those items and plan what time you'll tackle them the next day. Then when the next day comes, you are just on autopilot going through the motions of what you already agreed with yourself you were going to do. I think for a majority of tasks, just deciding to do it takes more mental effort and energy than actually doing it. Following this method has made me so much more productive and really feels like a superpower. You don't have to cram a bunch of stuff in either when planning this. Be kind to your future tomorrow self and just plan a few things that you can realistically accomplish. The best part about this is that when you are relaxing or doing something fun, you don't ever feel guilty or like you should be doing something else. You made your plan and are following it. You are doing exactly what you should be. Story 15. Do more things you like. This is not doing the one thing you like all the time. Do a bunch of things. You will have a better life if you do a diverse set of things than if you focus in on a few things. Story 16. In a busy touristy city like London, if you just want to get from A to B, without negotiating endless crowds of slow walkers and lines of kids on school trips, adopt the parallel streets strategy when walking. Avoid the main tourist thoroughfares. Just take the streets parallel. Story 17. The better you look, the better do people treat you and think you are more intelligent. Looks ain't everything, but this life is not fair, and to win an unfair game, you have to play unfair. The way you look influences every aspect of your life. Start with at least cleaning yourself every day and get your haircut and or beard trimmed on a regular. I was once uglier than I am now, and I was once better looking as swell. I'm talking out of experience. Story 18. When my brother was working a grocery store, he would look at the calendar at the beginning of the year and change his availability so he wasn't available on the day that 4th of July fell on. Then, in like September, October, he'd change his availability so we wasn't available on the days that Christmas Eve and Christmas fell on. No one ever caught on to what he was doing either. Story 19. All the free and cheap resources online for computer professionals. I use my free operating system, Linux, to run free software. Coding, image manipulation, office utilities, databases, video editing, browsers, much more, to build software which people then pay me for. I've literally paid $12 for a Udemy course, spent 20 hours learning from it, and turned around and gotten paid $8,000 to teach it for a week. It's crazy how much is available out there. The internet is the most valuable learning resource in the world, but somehow a lot of people go on it and come away thinking that white supremacy and chemtrails are the big talking points. It's bizarre. Story 20. I know this applies in the US, but get the local area code when traveling. Then when using rewards for that store, just use the local area code and then Jenny's number 867 5309 from the song. You can forget it because it's a catchy lyric and it works at every single store that has phone number accounts. You can use club rewards in places you will visit maybe twice. Story 21. Realizing that despite the trauma, despite how my brain is naturally wired, despite feeling like a victim in areas of my life, despite it all, I actually have the power to change my mindset, connect with my body, and have more control over how I regulate. And I navigate the world. Because I'm worth having more ease in my life, and so do the people around me. Exploring therapy, somatic therapy, meditation, journaling, looking after my health and well-being has made me feel like I've woken up and cracked the code. Story 22, care less. The amount of cruelty and injustice in this world will overwhelm you if you let it. Choose what matters to you most and focus on that, otherwise you'll be consumed by heartbreak and a sense of impending doom. And if the only positive influence you can have on this world is to not be a dick, well, that's still something. Story 23. If it takes 5 minutes or less, do it now. House remains clean. No cleaning party on days off. I will also grind other chores, laundry after work even if tired. Days off, it's time to relax. We often run on low sleep and high stress in modern society. It does more damage than we realize. Story 24. Be the person that shows up to work every day on time. Period, unless you are in the hospital. Don't bicker with your coworkers or boss, even when your coworker is an asshat. If you do those two things, then no matter what your competency at your job is, you will likely never be terminated. If you are the one who also shows up on time and basically never calls in sick, and you are never involved with intra-employee conflicts, and you are subordinate to your boss without the bickering, never get picked for layoffs, never get terminated for cause, because regardless of what you do wrong, you'll always get a second chance. Both because you never call off sick or show up late, your paychecks will always been full paychecks, and because you never leave a job except by choice, your income continues uninterrupted. You will likely become very proficient at your job because people are always willing to help and teach you something new, because you never are involved in conflict with your coworkers. Struggled in my working life for 25 years until figured it out. Made a clear, conscious choice, do those things, and instantly my financial situation and work stability improved leaps and bounds. Story 25. Get boarding group A on a Southwest flight and immediately book it to the last row of the plane. You have a great chance at having an entire row to yourself. And if not, you'll at least be entertained by people who didn't have their act together enough to get a better seat. Story 26. For chronic procrastinators. If I don't want to do something I really know I should do, let a coin decide. If the coin tells me not to do it, it's not my fault, and I stop worrying about it. I gave it a fair chance. If the coin tells me to, then I did work I probably wouldn't have done because I'm a lazy procrastinator. Story 27. Don't be put off by routine. Cooking the same thing on certain days for dinner, wearing certain clothes each day, having a set time that you do things. Some people might say it's boring, but the amount of time you save by not having to decide what to do and when to do it is so freeing. Story 28. If you don't want to be in an argument, you literally never have to. Someone walks up to you to give you a piece of their mind. Don't respond, just walk away. It takes two to make a dialogue. Only participate in ones that are positive or at minimum neutral. You won't be able to change the other person's mind, so don't bother. Story 29. Anytime someone is a jerk to you before you respond, first imagine that a couple hours before this person was a jerk to them, they received a phone call from their doctor who was confirming the cancer is way worse than they expected. It may not be true. It may be giving someone far too much grace, but every single one of us has at one point been rude to someone who was already having the worst day of their life. Sometimes just one more chance for everyone to check themselves is all you need. Story 30. No one is thinking about you because they are too consumed thinking about themselves. Don't spend your life worrying about what others think or how you need to act or what you need to wear. Live in the moment as much as possible. Story 31. When talking to someone, insert their name here and there. For example, you know what, person's name? I didn't even think about that. I've noticed that you can't really go wrong with this, and this also helps me remember someone's name. A person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Dale Carnegie. Story 32. When you feel road rage, think about how many times you've done exactly the same thing you're pissed about. Ask for feedback advice at work. Listen to it. Have an opinion on everything. Even if that opinion is, it doesn't matter to me. Just be careful how and when you share it. Always be yourself. People will notice and you'll be happier. Story 33. Just try, like actually try. A lot of us say that we try, but we barely put in real effort. Want to lose weight? Really try. Work out every day and count calories. Want to get promoted? Really try. Show up early. Do extra work. Ask for it. Want to meet a partner or a new friend? Really try. Go to a park, a bar, a game shop, and just talk to someone. A lot of people equate the desire with the effort, and it's just so different. Story 34. Stretch, foam roll, hanging bar, and pull-ups with meditation. I'm 41 and crawl around on my hands and knees all day and run circles around most of the young folk at work complaining about body pain. Stretch your back out every morning and night, or eventually you will have pain with work. Or even if you're sitting in a chair all day, stay flexible and try to be able to always at least lift your own body weight. Story 35. If you want to be debt-free, go completely cash. It's so easy to buy something online with one simple click, but it's harder to go out and physically buy the item. I take out everything except for money to pay the monthly bills, and I put the cash into my money safe in my basement. Did this for 5 years and got out of my credit card debts and was able to put down 50% on a house with pure cash. Story 36. When plotting revenge, don't let the people you despise know you're even angry. Just smile, laugh it off, and when the sword of Damocles comes crashing down, they won't know who could have done this. 99 times out of 100, you get to calm down, move on with life, and enjoy peace. That 1 in 100 times you carry out your revenge, you get away with it because nobody remembers you or that you even had a motive. Story 37. Be nice and get to know the people who work in places you frequent. I'm always nice, friendly, patient, and tip well at my favorite local restaurant. They often move me ahead of the wait, and I get a table right away, and they'll make my drinks extra strong. I chat with my cashiers at the grocery store and get to know them. One lady recently gave me a totally free turkey. Usually you'd have to spend $150 to get the free turkey, but someone didn't want it, so she set it aside and then offered it to me, even though several people had been ahead of me in line who she could have offered it to. That same lady recently came into my work, and I gave her a special deal on some vintage curtains and matching comforter. She was so thankful for the deal, she came back an hour later and bought an expensive rug, too. My grocery store will give you free produce boxes of stuff being pulled for your critters, but it's often totally good stuff included. I'm friendly with the produce guy, and he'll often set aside the good boxes for me and even throw in other items that were being pulled that normally they don't give out, like dry goods nearing the expiration date. In general, just being nice and taking an interest in people's lives will make people favor you over the many other people who pass through and don't even say please and thank you. So if they've got something nice to pass on, they'll likely choose someone who's been kind to them. It's a habit that pays off time and time again. And it goes both ways. If someone is kind, patient, appreciative at my store, they're more likely to get a special deal or even something free when I have too much of something. If someone is rude, I'm not making them a deal I otherwise would. Story 38. Read books to your children every day. Just 10 or 15 minutes will expose them to thousands of words that their peers won't. My kids are all 95th percentile readers in elementary school simply because we have books in our house and we read them. Closest thing there is to an actual cheat code in school. Story 39. Don't be lazy and have a good attitude. I worked with a lazy who was also incompetent, and the entire company disliked him. And months after he left, they still talked on him. If he wasn't lazy and Ann, we could have helped him with his incompetence. You can be at your job, but if you're always willing to help and a nice person, you'll be valued and people will want to help you. Story 40. Getting paid for waking up every day. 2 pensions. Still have my investments to tap into for more monthly income as well as Social Security when I reach late 50s and early 60s. Yes, living life in easy mode now. Previously lived life on ultra hard mode from childhood through high school. Story 41. Always act like I know where I'm going. Learned this as a preteen as a way to get to the front of the stage at crowded concerts. Walk focused and steady and crowds part like the Red Sea. As an old man, I still do it in public. Keeps me from looking like a victim. Recently saw a Special Forces guy on YouTube recommend this, especially for women and the elderly and pre-teens at concerts. Story 42. Cultivate gratitude. You see what you focus on. There will always be people who are better looking, richer, luckier, healthier, etc. Forget about them and focus on what is going right in your world. If you want to really kick it up a notch, keep a gratitude journal and just write down one thing you're grateful for each day. When you're having a bad day or something goes wrong, look at your journal. If you have trouble getting started, just watch TV commercials for medications. There are a ton of conditions you could have, but don't. Story 43. I would suggest acting as if you have no experience in anything. This might make the people around you feel special, and they may try to help you kindly. However, sometimes people might try to humiliate you. In such cases, you can humble them as you already know what you're doing. Story 44, just loyalty. Give it and seek it out. Its presence or absence is everything. Friends are everything. You don't need 30, though. That's not bad if they're real friends, but I have a few guys I could call and say I needed help burying a body and know they'd be on the way, likely talking the whole way. I would take a bullet for them and have been in very, very rough times in my life and gotten through because of them and have been able to repay that a few times too. Ditto relationships. Dating sites have made the idea of the next thing super approachable and people don't work as much, and that's fine sometimes. But relationships are hard as you get older. Marriage is basically a business of keeping functional. If you know your partner is putting in that same work and you trust them, that is everything. Not necessarily the best cheat, but loyalty is everything, and that includes work. In the current age of leaving every few years to find something new, the grass isn't always greener. Definitely do that when opportunity arises. But if you find a company and bosses that clearly reward hard work and it's shown in raises, not pizza parties, that's a place to build. Story 45. If you make a mistake, admit to it right away. Then you and the wrong party can work to make things right. When you lie or make excuses, that's when the other party gets mad because they now have to do more work to get you to see why you were wrong. That's where most of their anger comes from, not the mistake, but your obstinance. This can be extremely hard for adults to learn, because as children, we were very harshly punished for what we perceived were mistakes. Story 46. Learn partner dancing like swing, salsa, or waltz. If you're a man, you'll get more fit and will have women lining up to dance with you. If you're a woman, learn to lead as well as follow, and you'll make a ton of friends, get plenty of exercise, and possibly decide you're happier with females. Story 47. She was already learning that if you ignore the rules, people will, half the time, quietly rewrite them, so that they don't apply to you. Sir Terry Pratchett, Equal Rights. Works on the little stuff in life most of the time. Story 48. Need to fill up your gas tank, but don't have much money, but you do have a credit card. At most gas stations, as long as you have a small amount of available credit, $3 on your credit card, you can fill up your gas tank. Of course, you will have to pay it back on your next statement, but just to get you out of a bind. Story 49. Knowing how to calm someone down. It could be management or a random person on the street. Either way, your life can be improved or at least extended, knowing how to keep a calm head when someone else is losing their own. Story 50. Drink a good amount of water an hour or so before sleeping, and wait until you use the restroom to go to bed. This way, you're less likely to need to wake up in the middle of the night to use it, and you are thusly able to get a full night's sleep. Story 51. Be content. I hear so many people complain that they can't ever enjoy their free time because they feel guilty like they should be getting stuff done. Life's not about getting stuff done, it's about enjoying the time you have. Pick a thing or two to get done and enjoy the rest of the night/weekend. It's not the end of the world if you leave it for tomorrow or next weekend. Story 52. Honestly, stop caring about what unimportant or negative people interacting in your life might think about you. Giving less S where it's not needed is so freeing. This goes hand in hand with not letting people peer pressure you into doing things you don't want to. Story 53. I get free food all the time from several places near me. There are 2 locations of Today's Harvest, plus another place called Harvest from the Heart. There's also Ruby's Pantry. They all provide free food, which is great because we rarely need to go grocery shopping, just for small things here and there. Story 54. If you got some annoying people in your life who always seem to be starting some kind of drama, they are probably addicted to drama, most often centered on themselves. Stop giving it to them. It's like, don't feed the trolls, but IRL. Also, if you want to cut someone out of your life who is like this, you don't need to give them a big dramatic blow-up either. Just gradually be too busy for them. Chances are decent, they won't even notice because they're too busy chasing drama elsewhere. An entirely different thing. Just take the easy wins. Your parents want to get you a good job, but you want to make your own way and prove yourself? That just take the easy way. Lean into your talents. And to me, talent means a lot of things. It can be something like what you are just naturally gifted with, like a singing voice or a body built to excel at certain sports or work. But it can also be things like something you are just naturally obsessed with enough to become knowledgeable and skilled at it without it feeling like a grind, or connections. If you can choose between 2 equal fields, and in one field, you have just one connection, you can leverage once for one job or one promotion. That field will be enormously easier for you. Don't be a motherer trying to ice skate uphill. I know some people just enjoy a challenge, and sometimes that might inspire you to do your best work. But often it's so easy for a person who enjoys a challenge to discount their own talents and resources, because if it's too easy, it seems not worthwhile. Then we complain that life is too hard when you never take any easy wins. Look around for them. I bet you have some right now that you're just not doing because it would be a big change. Change can be scary, but remember you can't get from point A to point B without leaving point A. Story 55. Strength training. It just makes life so much easier all around, and the older you get, the more important it becomes. At 46, it helps me maintain my weight, keeps me able to train martial arts and keep up with people 20 plus years younger, and just makes everyday life easier. Story 56. Niceness is cheap. It doesn't cost anything to smile and say hello to people you see going about your day. Maybe remember a few names of security guards, doormen, etc. And like exercising any muscle, it becomes automatic after a while. You find yourself brightening people's day, getting promotions you didn't expect, getting free stuff, and just generally having things break your way. Story 57. Spend one weekend day at home for chores and relaxation, and the other for seeing friends or family. Avoid overbooking yourself or feeling guilty about saying no. Constant plans can be costly and leave you without much-needed downtime. Story 58. For when you're running late, tell your work, whoever, that you're going to be there later than you actually will be. You look better when you show up earlier than you told them, and it gives you just-in-case time. Also drink water. My health and energy is so different on days I don't drink enough water. Story 59. Being single. When you're comfortable with it and have hobbies to enrich your life, being alone is the best thing ever. You can choose how to spend your time and money. You can pick up and go at a moment's notice. You can still have meaningful and deep relationships with others. It's a cheat code when you figure out how to embrace being alone and finding meaning from within rather than from external sources. Story 60. STFU. If you want PPL to think you are a nice person, just STFU. PPL won't see you as a threat, works wonders in your job. Most of the jobs oversee. If your superior thinks you are a threat, he's going to you over, so just keep your opinions to yourself. It has the added value that when you do speak, Paul pay attention and take it seriously. No one gives a what that guy that keeps running his mouth has to say and dismiss it without even thinking. The more you talk, the less power your words have. Do you really want to give your opinion on sensitive topics at your job? Just say, I've never thought about it, so I really don't have an opinion. The story ends there. You are seen as a sensible person and you don't get at odds with anyone. So, yeah, STFU at work as a rule of thumb. Story 61. This is going to sound an eye-roll worthy, but things improved when I went from 1 mug of coffee to 4. 1 just made me sleepy. 4 makes so I can just go do stuff. I'm not bouncing around hyper. Things just become more straightforward. Story 62. World politics affects you like the price of eggs or gas, but you don't need to be involved or know every detail to the level of obsession. Keeping up on the news is bad for your mental health. You have a greater chance at affecting change at the local level than at the national level. Start by attending a local town hall meeting. Story 63. All you need to do is just have a few $1,000,000. Honestly, I don't get why it's so hard for you people. Just have at least $10,000,000, and that will be the biggest cheat code to life ever. With that, you can use your connections in the stock market, and with the right public image firm, you can turn that 10 million into several hundred million in just a couple years, and in no time at all with the right investments become a billionaire. Not hard, people. Just have a few $1,000,000. That's life's biggest cheat code. Satire. Story 64. Guys that are well hung typically don't date and end up dying young because the rest of the country bullies and follows along with the country's social normals of being married by 22 and knocked up by 23. It's almost like the rest of society groomed that behavior out of us because they can't please their wives. Story 65. If you're encountering a long line of traffic exiting the freeway, keep going, and eventually there will be at least one snoozer close to the exit not paying attention, allowing you to easily merge in without causing anyone to slam on their brakes behind you. Never a need to squeeze in. Guaranteed at least one person is leaving a huge gap. Next theme. What are some signs that someone isn't really intelligent? Story 1. If someone is always sure they're right, never admits mistakes, can't explain simple things, mocks others' opinions without arguments, and constantly tries to seem smarter, it's a red flag. True intelligence shows in curiosity, flexible thinking, and the ability to question things. Story 2. Absolutely nothing. Some intelligent people won't shut up about how smart they are. Other intelligent people think they're stupid. Some intelligent people are unwilling to consider being wrong. Other intelligent people constantly question and critique themselves. Some intelligent people are extremists who hate everyone who isn't like them. Other intelligent people are incredibly empathetic and won't stop fighting for a right cause. There is no through line between intelligent people because it's just a trait that a person is born with. That's why it's annoying that wherever this thread gets reposted, it always devolves into what I don't like to see in a person rather than what signifies intelligence. Story 3. No intellectual curiosity. Finding something out because the question occurred to you is completely alien to some people. More accurately, the question would not occur to them. Why would anyone read a nonfiction book? I was asked once by someone baffled when I told them what I was reading. Story 4. My dad was genuinely intelligent, top of his classes in Cambridge, lecturer for the highest level students, privately taught high-profile people's children to pass exams so they weren't embarrassed, contributed to scientific papers that are widely known. The thing he said the most was a commonly known saying, but still perfectly apartment. I know enough to know how little I know. I have achieved enough to know I am better than Noonie. It's easy for me to see people whore faking because I grew up with the real deal. I did not inherit this intelligence, but I did get his long-arsed toes. Story 5. They'll borrow quotes and opinions from authorities on certain topics and believe that the authority figure is correct because of their station rather than looking into it to confirm for themselves. Different from I agree with person because XYZ, and then they'll give personal anecdotes and real-world examples, which shows the ability to think critically. I'll take someone who's intelligent but uninformed that I disagree with over someone who blindly follows an authority figure I happen to align with. Don't get me wrong, I realize that beyond the surface level, this line of thinking can get messy. I'm very heavily generalizing. Story 6. This is some signs. For some of the people in the comments saying you can't for sure tell, obviously that's why OP is asking for signs. Adamantly ignorant, listens to echo chambers, cannot entertain perspectives other than their own, uses lack of education as an excuse, unable to problem solve, no curiosity, does not seek answers, never ask questions, argumentative, believe they know everything. These are just potential signs. An intelligent person can have all of these traits too. Intelligence is not linear. This reminds me when at work someone said someone was because they couldn't spell. I had to correct them and let them know that's education. That is not correlated to intelligence. Sadly, people are unable to differentiate between education and intelligence. Story 7. Intelligence is an inherited trait. Knowledge is earned through study and experience, easily confused. A genius born into poverty is more capable but still will have a harder time than an average intelligence born into wealth. High intelligence people are curious. Low intelligence never bother asking why things are how they are. Story 8. They make claims without any willingness to support them, or their sources are incredibly biased and unreliable. For example, anti-vaxxers. The sort of people that call everyone sheep and notion that all mainstream media are lying to everyone, but this blog they found is the truth. Story 9. Heard a great statistic end of last year. The majority of Americans believe they are above average intelligence. The opposite is actually the truth. It was an official poll. I forget which company did it, but I would say that would make logistical sense. Story 10. Smart people are more likely to assume that they could be wrong and tell you, and are more likely to admit errors. They know there often isn't a best solution or way of doing things. So while they know they're often wrong, they also know that everyone else is often wrong. Unintelligent people often think they're right and know the best solution. They usually believe there is a best solution and will rarely admit that they're wrong even if they know they are. Story 11. They start all their sentences with duh, like duh, whatever you say, boss. They run into walls and little birds circle around their heads while making tweeting noises. If someone shouts duck, they say, where? And spend the next several seconds looking around for waterfowl. I've never met a single intelligent person who does any of those things. Story 12. When somebody cannot distinguish the information they know from what others could or should reasonably know. An example is talking about a niche hobby/interest, expecting others to know about it too, perhaps even at the same level, and viewing them as being unintelligent for not. A thread of this is people belting out random things they're thinking about without context, and expecting others to be able to follow along immediately. Story 13. They don't care about where their information comes from, or if the source is credible. They only care about how the information received makes them feel. If it makes them feel good, it must be correct, and if it makes them feel bad, it must be wrong. An intelligent person cares about what is factual and correct, regardless of how it makes them feel. A very intelligent person will accept hard truths in an effort to face reality as it is, even when it makes them feel awful. Story 14. The most obvious one I have noticed is they have a really odd sense of time. Like I have heard people who thought medieval times was the 1800s, or that Picasso and Dali were at the same time as Michelangelo. They're usually the same people that act like a movie from the 1980s is really old as if it was a silent film. Story 15. When they don't realize they are being manipulated. This makes it really hard for me to be compassionate because it seems all too common in everyday life. I hate watching people make excuses for people because they won't even begin to imagine a human that knows right from wrong purposely playing and using them. I just roll my eyes at the times I hear someone's story about trying to teach someone how to treat them right. They are just buying the abuser more time. The abuser knows what they do, and they love that you don't believe they're capable and undermine their intelligence. Story 16. Are you asking about someone who is genuinely unintelligent or a person who isn't as smart as they think they are? Because the latter is a much more interesting question, emo. I once had a friend who was reasonably intelligent, though not as gifted as he thought he was, but his ideas lacked any depth or seriousness. And he seemed to compensate for that by being intentionally verbose and overly articulate. He would often do things for the expressed purpose of coming off as sophisticated or smart, such as listening to classical music or pretentiously correcting even the most minor of grammatical mistakes. Story 17. Intelligence. I think you can just gauge from how sensible their analysis, conclusions, logic are. Security in their intelligence is indicated by things like intellectual honesty and curiosity. In analytical, logical considerations, people who are secure in their intelligence engage in mutual dialogue to come to some sort of better understanding. For example, I, consider the most charitable interpretation of each perspective. 2, ask questions until they reach very deep levels of understanding, unafraid of asking questions about seemingly simple or basic things to reveal potentially important underlying concepts. 3, don't get defensive, opportunistic in discussions to make the other appear wrong, when in fact both perspectives are likely correct or valuable in some way. People who are insecure in their intelligence or deliberately arguing in bad faith are often performative and opportunistic and try to create an expedient soundbite where they sound right, i.e., a theoretical third person who is listening but not really thinking critically about what is being said might agree with your argument because it is specious, initially appealing, but actually false if analyzed critically. The classic example is how presidential debate participants argue, appealing constantly to an uncritical audience, or how the online debate me get owned genre of videos generally go. Not exactly academic rigor. You can do this by knocking down a straw man, moving goalposts, using words with ambiguous meanings, being dishonest or disingenuous, trying to attack the credibility of the other person. So people like this will often insidiously over time manufacture an imagined and exaggerated track record for others that can be referenced when expedient, etc. Story 18. When someone is not open to a civil discussion about a topic. For example, they believe a thing may work one way, but when presented verified and well-sourced information to the contrary, they ignore it and double down instead. Take scientists, for example. They go do their research and prove a topic, theory, or solution. If someone comes to them and says, "I don't think this is quite right," they are open to discussion so long as you bring your own research to the table to explain why you think they're not right. If not for this, we'd still think the Earth is flat and we're at the center of our solar system. Open communication is a sign of willingness to learn and progress when provided with new proven material. Story 19. When this person can't admit a mistake or won't accept that she is wrong and doesn't acknowledge flaws. When I had difficulty understanding my ex, her ways of thinking, I explicitly told her what went on in my head, and she always said, "That seems to be a you problem. I can't do anything about that." And whatever she used to do, that made me uneasy. Always resulted in me saying sorry for feeling the way I felt. One of the things she also said were, "You can't possibly know this. I'm your first partner." If I had a certain outlook on things, because yes, she was my first partner, but I was 9 years older and dated a lot. I'd say that's a sign that at least emotional intelligence is pretty low. You should be able to acknowledge a flaw and a mistake and say sorry, and do self-reflecting to grow. If you don't do that, how can you grow in life? Story 20. Using the word literally multiple times in a sentence or when there's no need to. I used to major in English back when I wanted to become a journalist, so I picked up on overused words, and that one is definitely overused. But it depends on what you mean by intelligent. Are you talking about academic intelligence, emotional intelligence, common sense, or something else? I know many people who are academically intelligent but not emotionally. I love them all, but man, it's exhausting sometimes. Story 21. From what I've seen myself, one big one is someone who refuses any sort of criticism, ever. Constant denial or always believing someone else is in the wrong and never themselves, even if proven, and they double down instead. Because by doing so, those people aren't open to personal growth, changing, improving their own stances and beliefs, learning new things, or questioning. A regular reoccurrence I've noticed in zealots in certain political groups especially. Story 22. True intelligence doesn't shout, it whispers. You see it in the ability to doubt, in the discomfort with the obvious, and in the refusal to accept easy answers. A clear sign that someone isn't as intelligent as they believe is when they prefer being right over understanding. In the end, intelligence is more about how one listens than how one speaks, and some mistake noise for thought. Story 23. They aren't curious and are annoyed by people who are. They refuse to acknowledge that other people have different experiences than their own. They refuse to admit they're wrong, even when confronted with overwhelming evidence. And finally, not only are they completely oblivious to the impact their actions have on others around them, they get angry when presented with the consequences of said actions. Story 24. They learn a tiny bit about something and then act like their opinions are more correct complete than people who spent many years studying and getting experience with the subject. They read something on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, or even from a source that isn't 99% bull, and then they, with ultra-confidence, contradict what an entire planet of experts who have years of experience and studies conclude and show with credible evidence. They will typically throw one or two words they just learned into the discussion, act arrogantly, and then accuse all of experts of either being evil conspirators or stupid and blind morons. Keep learning, and don't make statements, ask questions. The more you learn about a topic, the more you will begin to realize there is to learn about it, and how little you actually understand. It's why even the brightest of scientists end up specialized. You can't learn everything about all topics. When I was 19, I got a job in botany and was very arrogant when I became, for my age and experience, pretty damn competent and well-read. Eventually, I got my head out of my arse when I finally realized that my boss could perform basically magic in the subject if I shut my mouth and opened my ears. Story 25. My coworker finds herself extremely intelligent, and in some ways she is like memorizing legal jargon and having a large vocabulary, but her actions are those of someone who has an IQ of potato. So I'd say the first red flag is they think they are very smart, Dunning-Kruger effect. I'd also add, being emotionally charged about things that don't warrant it, constantly needing to be right, hypocrisy, but inability to see it, no self-awareness, not taking accountability, unable to read social cues. Some people may separate intellectual intelligence from emotional intelligence, but I do find most people who seem intellectually intelligent demonstrate low emotional intelligence. Story 26. I work in a classroom with two coworkers. During our break, myself and one of the coworkers usually have a conversation, usually politically related ATM, but it's usually a deep conversation, and we are both listeners and open to onions, and we have both learned a lot from each other. The other coworker will sometimes come in, and it's always not exactly what we are talking about. It's always a conversation halter because we can't really respond to it, and it's almost always just about herself or her family. It just feels like she can never really fully grasp what other people are trying to say, and so she just picks and chooses what she wants to respond to. Story 27 in the business world, talking. If you're in an executive level meeting, or any meeting really, the leader needs to give some preamble to start the conversation. Normal and required, though best practice is to keep it to that. The smart people are spending 80% of their time processing, analyzing, asking questions, and building on what others are saying when they speak. The S just talk as much as they can get in without getting smacked, and this person could be the leader at many companies.